Howdy folks, I'm Keith Bowen and this is Hard Rock University. Now, I'm working on getting the next project going and kind of summing up some of the stuff from the summer. And one subject that I thought you might find interesting is just who are these gold dredgers anyhow? You know, what makes a person into a gold dredger? And it's an interesting question because, at least in the Middle Fork of the Boise River, it's not generally a highly profitable enterprise. Most of these people are not doing it for, well actually none of them are doing it for money in terms of this is how I make a living. Everyone likes the money they get to offset the costs of the dredging, etc., and some of them are pretty serious about making a profit while they're there. But none of them make anywhere near enough money to get them through the year until they get back next year. A number of reasons for that. Number one, its fine gold is pretty evenly distributed in the river. It doesn't have the kind of rich pay streaks that many other rivers do. Some of the dredgers work hard to try and find it. Most of them just look for the kind of richer stuff that's, you know, easier to find, but not the real deep pay streaks. That can be a lot of work and you may not find it. I mean, it's hard work, it's cold water, it's dangerous to some extent, and it's not generally profitable. So who does this and why? First of all, virtually everyone I ran into was a character to some extent or another. These are very individual people. They're very strong-willed. Obviously, they can't be too timid or you're not going to be immersing yourself in ice water and rustling boulders around. So a lot of them were veterans. I'd probably say like at least 50% were veterans. And most of them were retired to semi-retired. Now, there was a lot of interesting personalities out there. There was only one guy I had real trouble getting along with. Everyone else was pretty easy to get along with. And they generally would help each other out to a certain extent. But the interesting thing was, everyone wanted to be able to brag about what they were getting, but nobody wanted to tell anybody what they were getting. So it created an interesting psychological dynamic where, you know, you can't really brag about what you got without telling other people where the gold is. That was kind of interesting to watch at times. Okay? And another thing that I found interesting was they generally were large people. I mean, like the camp I was at, I was the smallest guy. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds. Okay? And everyone else was taller or bigger than me. And say, I'm usually a fairly large person in any crowd of guys. So they're generally pretty big, robust characters too. Now, I'd like to go and kind of go through the list of people, especially as there's two in particular I want to say special thanks to. The first person I want to say special thanks to is Forrest. Now, Forrest was in the same campground we were at. Eva was injured. She couldn't hardly do anything. It was very, very difficult on her. And when I went out dredging with Mike W., there was 3 Mikes at least. Maybe that's another thing that makes you a dredger, is if your name is Mike. I don't know. But anyhow, when I'd be dredging, I mean, I'd be gone for like 6 hours. And Forrest, he was dredging right there at the campground. He kept an eye on her, made sure if she needed anything, she could whistle. Literally, we got her a whistle and stuff. She could whistle and he'd see what she wanted. And I really, really want to thank Forrest for all his attention. I could leave my camp knowing that Eva was in good hands. And I really, really appreciate that. He's also a nice guy. He can out-talk me. He's got lots of stories to tell and stuff. As I say, fun guy to be around. Did a little bit of dredging with him. Another problem when you have a bunch of older gentlemen that are immersing themselves in ice water in the middle of nowhere is people have to go get supplies. That's 2 days out of dredging. People will get sick. You know, you'll catch a cold or something like this. Not good to immerse yourself in ice water and shove river water up your nose when you're sick. So there was a fair number of down days, and when Mike was unable to go dredging or whatever, then a couple of days I was working with Forrest, and that worked out pretty well. We built a little lookout point there so that Eva could go sit there and watch us dredge, and made the time go a lot faster for her. We could sit there and just look up and keep an eye on her, make sure she was all right. If she needed anything, she could just wave and we were right there. It worked out great for everybody. And again, I just want to thank Forrest for all his help and attention and all his offers of assistance. Very generous, very nice person. The next person I want to talk about is Mike W. Now, Mike is the guy I was dredging with. I was working his dredge primarily with him, and except for the first couple of days, it was just the two of us because Scotty got his own dredge and was working a different area. And so it went from a 3-person crew down to a 2-person crew. Both Mike and Scotty, when I wound up kind of, abandoned up there, they went looking around and put forth a little extra effort to try and find any dredgers that needed help, and I appreciate that effort. And also, when it turned out that they had lots of rocks to move, that's when I started helping on Mike's dredge, and you've seen a lot of what we did there. Mike is a nice guy. He's a big guy. This guy is strong. He makes me look a little bit puny, and he can move some big rocks. He's also taking care of a kid and this and that and the other, trying to juggle a number of things there. And so, I say, he was interesting to work with. He had a place there that we could stay that made life a lot easier. It was his Wi-Fi that I uploaded all those videos with. So, he is a very nice guy. We got Scotty and Mike B. Scotty originally started working with Mike W, then got his own dredge, moved to a different area, and he and Mike B were working this different area and trying to find good gold there. And as I understand, they did reasonably well. Again, you don't tell who made what. I did make some gold, not a whole lot. Actually, about it was 2/3 of an ounce. It was my take, but I had a great time. I got some more money when we chopped firewood and stuff like that, so it worked out well for me. I'm very, very happy with that. Scotty, Mike B. It was ball busting time in camp. I mean, you better be quick on your wits and fast with the comeback, because let's say it was pretty funny the way the epithets would fly back and forth and the accusations. So we had a good time there. And let's see, who else we got here on the list? Gene. Okay, Gene is the local fire chief up there and kind of the nexus of information. He's the guy who knows everybody and everything. He's the conduit with the Forest Service and anything like that. Very, very nice person, very easy to get along with, and pretty organized. So he's a very important person up there. Buddy. Now Buddy, he's pretty independent. He's a hardcore miner, small-scale miner. And I mean, when he was in the river, he was serious about it. I mean, this guy was seriously dredging, and he was the one guy that was really going after the pay streaks in the middle of the river. He was pretty hardcore about it. And again, easy to get along with, and working on some projects up there, which hopefully will bear fruit and I can talk about later. And finally, the second person with special mention is Wayne. Now Wayne was towards the end dredging just upstream of us there in Mike's Eddy. Wayne was very generous with his time, with his equipment. That's his come-along we were using because our winch broke. And you know, he gave me a jacket because my wetsuit was just a 3 mil wetsuit from Southern California. So he gave me an extra wetsuit top, you know, with cut-off sleeves that he'd made a long time ago, and it was kind of surplus for him. And that really made it a lot more comfortable. So, say, Wayne was generous with his time, with his resources, and with his information. He showed me how to pan gold, which will theoretically be on the Patreon pay side later. That really did a great job of cleaning up this really annoying flaky gold they had there. But he was always very generous, quiet-spoken, and willing to help out. And Wayne, I want to thank you very much for all you did for me and Mike there, and everything in general. So, I think you deserve special mention too, just for your sheer generosity. Now, again, when it comes to these guys, they're not in it for the money. They're in it because they enjoy doing it. They just enjoy dredging. It's cold, it's hard work, etc., but they love it. And they'd love to make a lot of money doing it. That particular environment isn't necessarily the best to do it in, but they gave it a heck of a go. Another thing I want to bring up that's kind of interesting is we would generally sleep in late. I wouldn't. I'd be about the first one up at 8 o'clock in the morning. But the reason was very interesting. The river was pretty shallow, typically, you know, knee deep. And it was fairly cold. But it was summer and there were sunny days. And so even when it would drop to freezing overnight, by midday the river might be up to 55, 60 degrees. And so it made sense. If cold is what's going to limit you in the water, go in later in the day to where you can work until you're tired instead of going in early and by noon you're so hypothermic you have to stop for the day. So it was kind of interesting, but we worked like from 11 or noon to like 6 in the evening. It was an early start and it made perfect sense. So I thought I'd you know, bring that up. But these are the guys I was with. I had a great time and they were fun to be around and just a hell of a group of characters. So thanks guys. Thanks for making my summer really fun and interesting. I learned a lot and I just had a good time. So all of you guys, really happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.